Hi everyone. So in this tutorial we will look at hashing passwords. So from where we are last lesson, you'll notice that currently on our admin page we can see the user's passwords. Now, when it comes to storage of passwords, no modern website should be storing a user's password. Um, Instead, they actually store an encrypted version of that password, which is known as a hash. In this way, the administrator of the database can't see people's passwords. And likewise, if hackers do break into a database, they too only see the encrypted version of the password. And it's one way encryption. So it shouldn't be able to be reverse engineered, although sometimes people do come up with lists of hash passwords. But the thing about a hashing algorithm is it's one way. So what we are going to do is we are going to change those passwords into a hash representation of them. And when the user logs in, we'll actually hash the password they use and compare that hash against the hash that exists in the database. In this way, they never actually have their password actually stored on the web server. Um, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to apply the hashing algorithm once to the existing passwords in the database. So we're going to create a one-way function to do it. And then after we've done that, we'll actually ensure that when a user logs in or a user registers, that the hashing algorithm is applied. All right, so to do that, we're going to go back to the admin page and we are going to add a form to the page. And I might just put in a BR tag so it's a bit different. I'm going to create a form. And in that form, I'm going to give it the action. And I'm going to choose our backdoor as the action of the form. As I said, with the form action, you can actually send it anywhere so long as the URL is prepared to receive that data. And the method again will just be post. Actually, to be honest, it could actually just be get. It actually doesn't matter. Um, we're not actually sending any data to the backdoor. We're just basically triggering it with our form action. Um, to know, we will. No, we'll make it post anyway. That way, at least we can test the actual method. So we've created a form, and we just need to put an input button into it. And the button will be of type submit, and this one here will be hash passwords. Right, and the thing is, we should only really apply this once. So once we've done it, we might actually just delete this entirely. And we're going to go back to our Flask app. And in the backdoor of our the view function called backdoor, again, we're going to enable the method. And then we're going to have here if request.method is equal to post. Now, currently we've got all the users in the database. So what we want to do is for each of those users, we want to hash their password. So we're going to go for row in results. And then we are going to run, well, we need to get their current password. So their current password is going to equal, remember it's a list of dictionaries. So inside that dictionary, there will be a field called passwords. So the current password will equal row password.
And then we are going to hash that password. Now, I've created a helper file for this. So if you go to the interfaces folder, you'll notice there is a file there called hashing.py. Like the actual code for hashing doesn't take very long, but it's still, I just like to make things a bit easier. So you'll need to put that line into your Flask app from interfaces.hashing, import all. And my hashing file, which is a helper file, has two functions. One is hash a password, and not only does it hash the password, but it actually adds what's called a salt to the password, which strengthens its encryption. It makes it so that it's encrypted based on the web server itself, not just a generic hashing algorithm. And then I've got a second function here called check password, which will allow you to check the hashed password against the user password. So both of these two functions are going to be imported in to your Flask app using that line. And here where I've got my hashed password, I'm going to say hashed password is equal to hash underscore password, which is the function in my helper file. It's that function there. And it's going to be the current password. Right, so now I've got the current password and I've got the hash password. Now I need to run a modify query, or an update query really. Database.modify query. And I'm going to run an update. And I don't know the update query off by heart. So I'm just going to go back to W3 schools. And there is some code there. I'm just going to copy the code. So I'm going to update the users table. And I am going to set the field, which is password, to equal the hashed password. And I'm going to put a question mark in because that's going to be a variable that I'm going to place inside. Where the user ID is again equal to a question mark. So I've got update users, set the password of that current user to equal, and I'm going to feed in the hashed password, where the user ID is equal to, and I'm going to feed in the current user. So now I actually need to feed in my tuple of values. The first value, remember, it has to be sequential. So sequentially, I'm putting in the password first. So I'm going to type in hashed password. And then the second value I'm going to place in is the user ID. Now, the user ID is equal to the database row and the key user ID. So I'm going to feed the user ID into my update query. And that should hash the passwords. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to return a redirect back to the admin page. I'm going to return a redirect back to the admin page, and I'm not going to carry any form data with me. So this code here should only run if it's run from the admin page. But be aware, you can't run the code twice. You can't hash a hashed password again. Otherwise, it's irretrievably damaged or irreparably damaged. Okay? So it'll work once. Once we've done it, we're going to have to actually comment out this code, which we'll do in a second. So that should run for us.
Let's test it. Let's test it. All right. So going here, I'm just going to reload the admin page. And it is saying there isn't, I'm not running my server, so I better run my server. And it's saying there's an error in the post. Okay, so on my, yes, okay, there we go. I had one too many brackets there. So again, I'll just run my server. Okay, so you can see I've got my admin and then I've got this button called hashed passwords. I'm going to click hashed passwords and you can see it is now hashed all those passwords. So it's worked, but I cannot click this again. If I click it again, I will break my database. So what I'm going to do is now I'm actually just going to go back to my back door and I'm actually just for the moment going to comment this bit out using 3 apostrophes, comment out the code. It will no longer run. So I can make sure now that it's not going to actually do anything. The other thing I want to do is I want to make it so that this field is shorter. So to make this field shorter, or possibly even maybe hide the field. So what I'll need to do to make that field shorter, I'm going to have to make sure that the table cells have a maximum width on them. So where I've got any type of not TH, but an actual TD, I need to make sure that there is a maximum width on that. So I'll actually put that into my CSS. So here I'm just going to say max width, I don't know, 100px will probably do it. And I need to make sure that there's no overflow as well. All right, so I'm going to have to put this code here into my CSS. You can make it a bit larger if you wanted to, but I'm going to hide it essentially. So I'm going to just copy that rule. And then what I'm going to do is in my CSS, I have got something called custom CSS, which is inside the static folder. Under custom CSS, I'm just going to paste that rule. So on my table, I need to make sure that it's going to hide the actual, well, it's going to make sure that it's not going to stretch out the entire screen. What I might do as well is in my admin HTML, I've got this table and I've got a class of table. I'm going to give it a second class and I'm just going to call it user table. And that way in my CSS, I'll refer to that particular class because I don't want that necessarily happening all the time. But that should work. Right, I think that's worked. Sometimes you need to do a hard refresh just to check. Okay, so that's working. I've now hashed the passwords. In the next tutorial, we'll look at how we can actually then match up the passwords because currently now no one can log in. We'll look at how we can actually match up those passwords with the user and how we use it inside the register page.